Meine Lieben, wenn ihr so nett seid und Platz nehmend. Jill. Das kollektive Gedächtnis für wer auch immer das 75-Jährige ausrichten wird unseres Verbandes, möge jedes Mal immer 45 Minuten Kaffeepause einplanen. So, ich glaube, wir werden jetzt langsam aber sicher beginnen. Darf ich euch bitten, eure Gespräche noch einzustellen? Wir haben nämlich Dragoș, Ciobanu, der uns über seinen Fachbereich, die Computerterminologie, maschinelle Übersetzung, berichten wird. Er arbeitet am ZTW, leitet am ZTW die HITRANS, Human and Artificial Intelligence in Translation, Arbeitsgruppe, Forschungsgruppe, und untersucht dabei die Verbesserungen von Lokalisierungsworkflows und Integration von Übersetzungs- und Sprachtechnologien. Das heißt, genau das, was uns heutzutage beschäftigt. Und ganz wichtig, er arbeitet mit verschiedensten Sprachdienstleistern und Schullinguisten von internationalen Organisationen, damit diese dann in den Organisationen die entsprechenden Technologien umwandeln. Und wenn ich der Webpage der Uni Wien trauen darf, dann ist dein aktuelles Forschungsprojekt die Auswirkungen der Sprachsynthese auf die kognitive Belastung und Produktivität beim Post-Editing maschineller Übersetzungen. Und jetzt geht es um Translating with Artificial Intelligence. Bitte schön.
Schön. Vielen Dank. Thank you very much. I'm wondering if we could have the presentation on the main screen as well. Super, thank you. Many thanks for the invitation. Many thanks to all of you for staying so late. You could have been free. It's no longer raining. Congratulations to Universitas, many happy returns. And for the next minutes, I will be talking about translating with artificial intelligence. I really want to thank the interpreters as well for allowing me to be connected today and understanding what's happening. Much appreciated. Yes. So who am I, apart from being a clearly very narcissistic person who puts their photo on every slide? I play with technology, as you've heard, at the University of Vienna, and together with my colleagues, with Alina, with Miguel, and our PhD students, Claudia, Raluca, and Justus, we tried to look for ways to make the translators' work a bit more ergonomic, maybe even enjoyable, hopefully more productive as well. So we function on the kind of understanding and acceptance in a way that progress and change seems to be the kind of only constant nowadays. And this is a screenshot of Seth's webpage. Seth Godin is actually getting more and more translator friends nowadays, if you follow social media. I quite like, he's from a totally different field, but I often read his mini blog and I feel like what he says resonates with our profession as well. So this idea of change and this really important question, are we fighting the change or are we leading it? So we we're trying in our groups in the TEW to do something about influencing the way translation technology is going and how it is applied in translators' workflows. I've got lots of photos. And the topic of the presentation is translating with AI. And here is a quote. AI is definitely driving the agenda. Everyone wants to incorporate it and feature the latest advancements. Probably everyone in this room has been involved or has seen this happening. Why do I believe linguists are indispensable? Is because these developments aren't always made with an understanding of localization or translation in mind. And this is something that Bianca also started to touch upon, that there are some tools created for linguists and there are some others just created. For instance, there's a tendency to say, let's use generative AI for automatic post-editing without fully grasping the intricacies of a style guide or its components. This comes from interviewee number 5. This is very mysterious. And I've got such quotes coming up. They come from a project that started recently, started at the end of last year. It's led by Universitatea Autonoma de Barcelona, by Pilar Sanchez Gijon, and it's called LT Leader, Language and Translation, Literacy in Digital Environments and Resources. Our department is part of that, alongside other partners, and one of the things that we do is, or actually we have done, yay, tick, is interview members of our profession. So we have interviewed translators and interpreters. We have interviewed people on the language service provider side, so companies side, like IT managers or project managers or C-level persons. And we have also interviewed translation scholars. So throughout the presentation from time to time, just because it will be very boring to just listen to me, and there's no reason why you should trust what I say, then I will let one of our fellows make the point much better than I can. Before I start, just a quick note, just based on what I'm seeing and hearing from time to time. What does this artificial intelligence actually mean for members of our community, for also for trainers of translators? I find that it kind of, depending on who you talk to, it kind of means one of the 3 or maybe all 3 combined. So there are some people who talk about AI, but they refer to generative AI. So things like ChatGPT, Claude, large language models. But there are other people who, when they talk about AI and its problems, they kind of strictly just refer to neural machine translation, which is a flavor of AI, but is not the whole AI. So sometimes we need to be a bit more clear about what we're talking about. And there are some people who actually mean computer-assisted translation tools, CAT tools, which is a bit strange, and there is a big difference between CAT tools and machine translation. So I think that's a minority, but it's a good thing to keep this in mind. And apologies for the, well, actually, I don't apologize for the little thumbnails. They are generated by the previous version of Copilot, and they're so bad, I thought they were cool. So I left them. And because we talk about AI, I think translators in particular have had to struggle with AI making their life, well, changing their lives, actually. Let's keep it diplomatic. Changing their lives for a long time, but now the world is impacted by artificial intelligence, and other communities are waking up to basically the same problems that translators have had for a long time. One of these communities that I quite like to follow is represented by computer programmers. So I came across this cartoon, and I thought it resonates. AI, current situation. There is a bunch of people, well, this person calls them sad engineers. I wouldn't dare to say sad translators, who have to deal with a pile of complexity, different languages, different tasks, different project managers, different domains, etc., to make something nice out of them. But to the rest of the world, we have a whole bunch of really happy other people, let's call them non-engineers, non-translators, non-interpreters, non-subtitlers, who think that AI, and again, AI means whatever they think of, usually large language models, is somehow going to deal away with the pile of complexity, just make it disappear, poof, and the result is still there, same quality, even faster, cheaper. But actually what happens for translators, and it's started to happen more and more, and I think some for programmers, and I think some translators will recognize themselves somewhere in there, is that actually you have still some sad people who now have to deal with a new pile of complexity added by the integration of AI in order to pass on the work to some even sadder people who still have to deal with the old pile of complexity that's just been kind of shifted along the line. And of course, this is a bit of a generalization, and there are some really good examples of successful integrations of artificial intelligence, but it's not all sort of unicorns and something else, rainbows. So just to give some examples of this new pile of complexity that I mentioned, this is Konstantin from Intento talking about this a few months ago. Again, one company dealing with a lot of clients just being bewildered. Why can't you do things faster, better, cheaper? Because now we have AI. And this person breaking it down that actually there are challenges on the speed front, on integrating with existing software, because it's not just like you snap your fingers and AI just fits in to your existing tools. That prompts give you different results based on how you write them and also which large language model you ask. And also, if you want to customize these large language models for translation purposes, for summarization purposes, etc., it does require effort and data, and not everyone appreciates that. So the good thing, or the positive, one of the positive aspects that we are seeing in our project is that actually some of our respondents, so let's call this mysterious person interviewee 15, is reporting that we have also seen it with some companies that at first they said, let's stop having editors. So basically they just got rid of people. And now they're coming back. When they're seeing the problems they're having, they're coming back to hiring humans. So I thought it's important to add this because sometimes when I look online, news aggregators such as Translator, there are others, they tend to report the extremes. So for August, most of these stories are either super happy, this is how we implemented AI and reduced cost in company X, versus super disturbing and sad. This is yet another strike by translators or interpreters in one part of the world as a reaction to a wrong or misguided implementation of AI. So it's quite easy to create this really strong opposition, which doesn't help if we just talk about technology with yes, we're for, or no, we're against. There's a lot of gray space in between. By the way, again, this is AI built into Illustrator, generating me a picture of a happy translator versus an angry translator. So someone less diplomatic than me might even say AI is both sexist and really not very innovative, but on the image generation front, but I'm not going to say that. Another interesting, and I thought it's suitable for this presentation, another opinion that we saw in our interviews is that we tend to represent the worst scenario, and I quite like this. We'll lose our jobs, nothing to like about that. But artificial intelligence will eat us. I thought that's nicely put. Or humanity will be annihilated. But we have to change that view. We have to know the technology very well and work from there. So I think that's a reasonable message. So the presentation is on that note. A little point to make also about IT skills, because I think maybe at some point or another in our past, we might have overestimated our skills. Just to put it out there that IT skills are sometimes really taken for granted. And it also applies a little bit to the students that I'm seeing, and I've been seeing for a while. We have this impression that the new generations are digital natives, so they can just swim and take everything on board. I'm seeing that they still need guidance, and they haven't used our specialized tools, so why should they even know how to do that? So let's not have too many assumptions. So at the end of the day, as interviewee number 23 says, I think what we can do, the best we can do, is to try and find how to achieve the best result with the resources we have. I personally think that's reasonable. So what resources do we have? The translators in the audience are probably groaning now, because maybe they wanted one day without a CAT tool, and it's not that day. But Bianca, she set the precedent of having screenshots, so here we are. To everyone else out there who hasn't seen Trado Studio, this is one of the specialized computer-assisted translation tools that translators use on a daily basis or frequently. Some translators never use them, that's also possible. And it's quite busy, and it's a lot of information to pay attention to and save. So in terms of excitement in the world of CAT tools, to be honest, in the last years, the most exciting thing was perhaps the integration of neural machine translation hypotheses. So we didn't have to go outside, copy-paste, and then go back in. But one of the criticisms has been that, okay, we now have machine translation inside our CAT tools, way hey productivity, but how do we know if that suggestion is reliable at all? So far we just get, here it is, good luck. A bit like, yeah, here's the terminology, good luck with your assignment. So fairly recently, we've started to see in some other CAT tools, but it's coming slowly to the more established ones as well. We've seen things like this, which are numbers, but they're not numbers from translation memory matches. They are predictions of how reliable this suggestion is. And all the suggestions come from machine translation, and several CAT tools have implemented automatic measures. This is all called machine translation quality estimation, MTQE, but it's implemented, and there are different providers, so it's implemented slightly differently. But that's the idea. You see the suggestion from it's a hypothesis, the hypothesis from the machine translation model. You also see it somewhere else in the interface. And based on the data collected by this company about how many changes other people made to similar or exactly the same suggestions in the past, you get a score. And it's a really nice idea, because instead of needing to spend a lot of time checking very carefully all the suggestions, now, in theory, if this really works this well, you just have to glance at the score and decide how much effort you're going to be putting into it. And in this case, for this segment, the translator actually didn't make any changes, so it was a good prediction. The trouble is, I guess you knew there would be a but somewhere in there. that we're still dealing with early stages of machine learning. So then, a little bit later on in the same document, we have this situation where a slightly longer source segment is translated, but this is the translation from the machine translation model, and it's given a score of 97. By the way, all scores are out of 100, as close to 100 as possible. It's amazing. So this is an excellent suggestion. The trouble is that, as we can see down here, the translator made quite a lot of changes. It's small, so I guess you can't read it, but this person split the suggestion into 3 sentences, changed a lot of the words, so it really went far and beyond what would be expected normally by a layperson from looking at a 97 suggestion. So didn't work in this case. There's also the other scenario where the suggestion comes with a score of 64 in this case, poor. So that tells us, look, it's terrible. You might have to change all of it. But actually, the translator had a look and changed am Ende with something nach Abschluss. And that was it. So what we're saying, I mean, what I'm saying at this point is that it's exciting technology, and you will see lots of presentations about this probably in the coming webinars. But take a moment and see how it actually works with your language pairs and your content before buying into or starting to fly the flag. Other things that have been happening on the integration front and how they are affecting translators' work are things like these. The previous company that I showed you the screenshot of, Phrase, just like this company, SmartCat, they integrate several machine translation models from providers, different providers, and also they start nowadays to integrate large language models too. And they have automatic ways of selecting the best, most suitable model for your content. Again, a super nice and useful idea in theory, but as we have seen before, that was also an automatic selection. And it worked in some cases, it didn't work so well in other cases. Something else that we should keep in mind, and again, it's something that one of our interviewees, mysterious person number 2, said, and I think it's really important. So I'm going to read the whole quote. This person builds and deploys neuro-machine translation models. And this person said, when we as researchers go to deploy systems, 9 times out of 10, we don't think about the target community. So there is an assumption from some of the AI enthusiasts that for some reason translation is so easy, it's just replacing words, and that's it. But we all know that we are working for actual people with actual needs and communities. And it's interesting to see that here we have an honest, I would say, quite brave developer saying that actually it's not on their agenda. I mean, they work with data. We think they don't have anything right now. And this doesn't just apply, by the way, to low resource languages. This is the same situation with specific domains. So don't think that just because there is a fairly good model from, I don't know, let's say English into German for general text, that as soon as you take it into something very specialized, like, I don't know, medical, even medical is huge. Knee surgery. It's going, just because I've been through one lately, and I couldn't understand what that text was about. That is going to perform well. It's the same situation. There's no training data. The results are not going to be very impressive, unfortunately, or at least not yet. So the researchers behind the models, they just think that anything is better than nothing sometimes. But that might be the wrong assumption. And for example, if I gave you a word system where you can only type but cannot delete, that wouldn't really make you an enthusiastic user. And I think this is the kind of message that sometimes we have to summon all our diplomacy and calm to put across to our clients, just because there is a little bit of a hype about what technology can do for language services at the moment. But again, good news. It seems that some of the big companies are waking up to the fact that translation is not just replacing words. And this is one of the articles from Google that was shared for quite a lot this summer. And it's essentially someone from Google suggesting that if websites really want to keep their customers, they should go beyond just putting a Google Translate button on their websites. And also, there is sometimes an assumption from our clients that machine translation is just whatever they saw and whatever was free. But the machine translation landscape is really wide. And these ones are just models that a company called Intento benchmarks and assesses fairly regularly, or at least yearly. So we have generic models, which are not going to perform that well for specific domain content. But we also have other models which allow you to fine-tune or are already fine-tuned for finance, medical, legal, other domains. There are models and providers that allow you to add your terminology so that you improve the quality of the hypotheses. They're still hypotheses, but they're better. And there are also models and providers that allow you to adapt, or in other presentations you will hear the term fine-tune. Fine-tune the models for specific domains. And some of this fine-tuning can be static. So, I don't know, once every 3 months, your solution is going to be updated based on your data. Or it's dynamic, so pretty much almost in real time, but not quite, but fairly frequently, a lot more frequently than once every 3 months. The output of the machine translation model will try to mimic your writing style and your previous translations more. So there's a lot to choose from. Of course, we can't forget e-translation, which is a really nice and generous contribution of the EU to small and medium-sized enterprises, as well as academic institutions. So that's also an option that you and your clients have. And after that much talk about machine translation, I think Bianca spoke also, so we've kind of covered machine translation. I was thinking of sharing some other ways in which artificial intelligence has been integrated into some tools. So as time passes, we will see which integrations get the best feedback and what remains. So this is MadeCat, which is free. You can access it. You can change the default settings to also make it private. So I think it's a useful CAT tool to have that is cloud-based. And Translated, the company who created MadeCat and who currently maintain it, they very recently integrated an AI assistant. What does that do? It allows you to highlight up to 3 words in the source segment for every segment that you're working on. It can be different 3 words if it's a long segment. And then after you have highlighted them, the assistant kicks in and it produces an explanation in the target language of the project about what that term or phrase means, according to a large language model. Sometimes it works, sometimes there are some issues. So this is one example of the deployment. So it tells us that corporate profile is a brief description, brief presentation of a global enterprise. Because they've been experimenting with the prompts that go behind, they've even made it so in the last version that I checked, you also get a translation and then an explanation, which can be useful. I mean, some translators, sometimes I go to conferences where translators gather and we're like, machine translation is evil, okay. And then we go off to tea and coffee, and a lot of people actually use machine translation, but they want to use it on their own terms, and they copy-paste into whatever they like to use. So, this is a current implementation that might help some people. The only thing is that, unfortunately, depending on the language of the target language of the project, you get slightly different information. So here, this presentation is a brief one of the company in French, but in Romanian is a really detailed one. So it might not really influence the translation of this specific term, but it's a slight change in the explanation. So again, it comes from the LLM, it is what it is, just something to be aware of. And these kinds of examples make me go back to Sam Altman's from OpenAI's long time ago, December 2022, when he said that actually ChatGPT is incredibly limited, good enough at some things to create a misleading impression of greatness. The technology has evolved, a lot more content and training data has been added, so we have seen progress. But again, for some of your over-enthusiastic clients, maybe this reminder is going to do them good. And just to lower even more, if it were possible, the level of my presentation, I'll be stereotypical and say that sometimes this discussion about artificial intelligence kind of reminds me of discussions about shiny cars in the past when I was younger. So AI and large language models sometimes are presented as these ones were, really shiny, really fast. Why wouldn't you want one? But at least in the past, we hope that in the future things will be better. I think for now this kind of applies. So owning a large language model is a bit like owning a bear. I mean, it's great until it pulled your head off, which it would. One day it's going to pull your head off. So again, something that you might want to pass on to your clients. Okay, more examples of interesting developments. And this one actually addresses specifically the problem that we had before, in that we would get, as the French say, sometimes n'importe quoi from the LLM. This is an initiative by a company called MemoQ, who have released this AGT, which is Adaptive Generative Translation. It's a plugin for their CAT tool, which doesn't just speak to an LLM to request the translation, but it also sends fuzzy matches and relevant terminology as part of the request, as context, in order to improve the quality of what you get. So this is a really silly example, but that was the level at that point in the evening. So right now, if I ask a large language model to translate this English 5 months ending 30th September 2003, funny how none of the project participants realized that actually that's a repetition for about 3 years. But here we are. So if we ask a large language model to translate that, we get from Claude or ChatGPT and Copilot 5 luni încheiate în septembrie sau 5 luni care se încheie în septembrie. There you go. That was my chance to get some Romanian in the presentation. But our translation memory says that we had an 8 months ending in 2003 before, which we translated with a different structure, so pentru, and then the number, the months until 30th of September. So giving the previous translation memory fuzzy match, in this case I don't have any terminology, actually changes the suggested translation from the large language model, And also, it improves the spelling, it updates it. There was a spelling reform in Romania, so now we spell this way instead of that way with an I with a hat. Now we have an A with a hat. Well, we had it for a long time, but yeah. So the large language model actually adapts the spelling. It also updates the translation, and the result is closer to what you might want. So that's nice. This is terribly unreadable. I mean, some people really like dark mode. But you have to trust me that this is a screenshot from a tool called BureauWorks, where it's another CAT tool, cloud-based, which integrates large language models a bit more than other tools. And here you still translate segment by segment, but you get suggestions from the machine translation model that's added to the project. You can use your terminology, that's fine. But this is the nice thing in this interface. You get a little bit of an automated quality assurance. You get an evaluation of your translation. And sometimes this evaluation can tell you your translation is too formal. A better, more appropriate result should be X. So you get more interaction with the large language model, so you don't have to go outside, copy paste, come back in. And this tool also integrates automatic suggestions of terminology. So once you validate a translation, then you also, if you don't have certain terms in your translation, in your term base, the LLM integration, the AI integration, suggests them to you. And they also have another menu where you can fine-tune a prompt for your specific purposes. So you can say, simplify this translation, or translate within 50 characters, which is something gamers, game localizers really need to do, and subtitlers as well. So it's a even more involved and complex integration of large language models. So this is something that gets nowadays, at least on the translation company side, people more excited, not just to integrate technology because it's there. From the ones that we have spoken to, some actual purposeful integration to solve some problems. And the biggest problem they say they have at the moment, or one of the biggest, I guess, is this quality assurance. So taking the time to send translations, wait for feedback, then finding a way to integrate that feedback, negotiating with the initial translator maybe, and somehow managing to combine all these opinions and suggestions takes a long time. And at the moment, this is an area where large language models are being investigated a lot. So this person said it would be a game changer. So not just because the technology is there, or because I am afraid my competitors are going to laugh at me, but because I have a proper need, and I'll see if it helps me. I hope a lot of people are already members of Gala or signed up to it, or I guess some people are, how many associations do I need to be a member of? Well, Gala is a useful one in my opinion, and in their latest webinar, which was earlier this week, another company, Unbabel, was presenting the way they implement this automated QA as well. So if you want to keep an eye on what's coming for translators, Gala is a good place to do it in. Okay, time's running out, and a little bit of a bemol, as we say. Some of our participants sort of raise some alarm bells, raise some flags, that there is a danger of losing skills and becoming lazy if we just rely on the technology so much, coming to a point where we say, well, it's not so bad, it's fine. That's dangerous. So because of that, I'm seeing some Again, this is anecdotal, but I'm seeing some translators who are actively coming out of their really fancy CAT tools and opting to do this. So for instance, some of the UN translators, they like to, because they already have a license for DeepL, they like to take their source segments and put them in the web interface of DeepL, because then they can click on individual suggestions in the target and they can choose better ones, and they feel a bit more in control of the process. So this way of interacting with the machine translation output seems to really help some people. Other tools like Dragoș, they are now waking up to the demand or the realization that some people, not everyone types, let's put it that way. And that actually some people dictate and they're faster, maybe even faster than post-editing, or at least as fast as post-editing. And the quality of the output could be even better because it might be more appropriate to dictate, to produce an informal oral translation, let's say. So in Dragoș 2024, the dictation is coming in their web interface. And I thought this might resonate with some people in the audience. This is another interviewee, number 15, who talking about their workflow. This person says, when I start a project, I extract a list of important words using Sketch Engine. That was mentioned in the previous presentation. It's a tool for terminology management and terminology extraction as well. And then I train Dragon. Dragon, naturally speaking, is a voice recognition tool, a dictation tool, so that it recognizes them. I use dictation also for an ergonomic matter. It helps me to translate more relaxed. It also increases my productivity a lot, and the translation makes me feel that's already better than writing it. So that might be something that, if you haven't tried it, you might want to consider trying it. This application of AI, speech recognition, is one of the two quite exciting, from my point of view, applications. The other one is speech synthesis. So hearing the computer read out the translation to you, or the source text. And we were very fortunate, well, yeah, fortunate and lucky and excited. I think excited. We were very excited to persuade Translated to fund a small project and also change their interface, their MateCat interface, to include 2 buttons for every segment. And then we conducted an experiment with translators in our computer lab. And maybe some of you already also took part, so thank you so much for helping and playing with this interface. So all the translators could hear the source segment as many times as they wanted. Also, they could hear the target and then change it and then hear it again, as many times as they wanted. And overall, the majority really enjoyed the experience. It didn't improve their productivity, at least not yet, because it was a new way of working, and they only had 3 hours in our labs. And the quality was kind of the same, little bit better, but not really statistically significant. But they really enjoyed, or some people enjoyed, I get nods. We have one person in the audience who also enjoyed working in this way. There's a panel. I have a few more things, but I think I should stop here. So I'll stop after this slide, just to, again, for people who would like to try new things a little, maybe later on. MateCat already has a dictation plugin, so you can already click a button and dictate your translations. But this version with the speech synthesis was only created for our project and unfortunately is not yet available. The idea was to try to get translators a little bit closer to what we hear from some of the international organizations we work with. What we hear is really enjoyable for translators, that is having the translation read out to them, or them themselves reading it out, listening to it, and then having a discussion perhaps, or getting some nuance that they missed just by listening to it. And if anyone is interested, Jean-François Alain, he used to be the manager of a translation service in an international organization, and he wrote some really nice articles, super practical and excellent. And this one is about rethinking revision. I'm going to stop here because I've run out of time. The last point that I wanted to make was, or maybe just, okay, everyone close your eyes, because otherwise you're going to get seasick. Oh. Too late. Okay, somewhere there is an optimistic note. So I think we should end on an optimistic note. And because I have messed things up, this is not an optimistic note. I'm going to read the optimistic note to you. So this is from our interviewee 3. A lot of people had this notion that language skills are sufficient. However, this is a very technology-driven industry, and you can't get around. Again, it depends on the domain, so let's not take it too literally. But it's a really vast industry. So it's a technology-driven industry, and you can't get around the fact that you need to be comfortable using technology. Having gone through a phase where everything was needed very fast and at low fees, with little time for specialization, we are returning. Interesting. This is from the translation company side, so it's not, let's say, an optimistic one of us. So from the company side, we are returning to a specialized space where clients are willing to pay for good content, specialized content aimed at specific users. So I think there's optimism, there's an encouragement to specialize and get out there and maybe even find direct clients. I know I don't need to mention this because there are really good people doing that already in the audience. But it's not all doom and gloom, and the technology can sometimes even help. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. It was a great presentation. Is there one question? No? Well.
What was your prompt?
Who is sitting in the back?
Sorry, Anfängerfehler. What was your prompt for the happy and sad translator? Did you say I want a male translator, or did you say please draw a translator, and it drew a man?
Yeah, it was the most basic of prompts. I said image of a happy translator and then image of an angry translator.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that maybe if I'd said draw a woman translate, I've done.
It's just weird because there are far more female translators than male translators. So why would a machine that is supposed to know the numbers and the statistics, why would it draw a man?
I've got some photos that I generated for a presentation in Trieste in March, and it's mainly ladies, but they are at a desk with headphones and pens and a big notepad. So I think it's thinking, or it's not thinking. What it's doing is copying interpreters and then putting them in the same boat. I don't know.
Okay, no, I was just wondering.
At this point, for some things, I think it's just a pleasant way of wasting time. Maybe slightly better than scrolling on YouTube Shorts. But yeah, I need to grow up. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you again.